Hi everyone, I'm Renee and welcome to my channel. Today I'm getting in the Halloween spirit and I'm going to show you how I decorated this giant cupcake to look like a super cute bride of Frankenstein. I went ahead and pre-baked my cake layers. I used the giant cupcake pan by Wilton with my vanilla cake batter that I tinted purple to make it a little more festive. I'll have links to all of the supplies and recipes from this video down in the description box. The bottom cake is a little bit on the tall side, so I went ahead and split and leveled it, and I just leveled off the top part. These cakes do have a darker crust on them just because the pan takes about an hour or so to bake. I'm going to leave it on there, but you could trim it if you'd like. I also have a batch of my Swiss Meringue buttercream that I tinted green. I'll have links below to both my recipe and also a video I did showing you how to color Swiss Meringue buttercream because it can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to fill the bottom cake with the buttercream. I do have this on a cake circle that I had to trim to make it the size of the bottom of the cupcake, if not slightly smaller would be best. Then I'm going to crumb coat the cake, and when I get to the sides, I'm not going to worry about the ridges from the pan because they're just going to get covered up with the buttercream. I'm just going to go right on and let those ridges be filled in. Once the cake is crumb coated, we're going to let it chill in the refrigerator. The top of the cake just needs to be crumb coated. Again, I have this cake sitting on a cake circle that is trimmed smaller than the bottom of the cake. Once the cakes have chilled, I'm going to add my finished layer of buttercream to both cakes, and then I'm going to smooth them in preparation for fondant. I let the cakes chill until the buttercream was firm, and now I can cover with fondant. The bottom cake is going to be the face of our bride of Frankie, and I wanted to make her cute and girly, so I'm using this pale purple fondant. When you're done with the initial smoothing, trim off the excess, leaving about a ½ inch of overhang, and I'll show you how I finished up that edge. I'm going to dust the top of the cake with cornstarch. Using a cake circle, I'm going to invert it. Once I remove my baseboard, I can then pull those edges up, and that's going to allow me to smooth this cake really nicely and then trim off for a nice clean bottom edge. I'm going to start using my fondant smoother on that edge of overhang to make sure that I don't have any crease from when we applied the fondant, and then I'm going to go on to try and smooth the fondant as best I can and work that bottom edge into a nice crisp corner. Now I can trim off the excess fondant on that top edge, pushing it over onto the cake board to seal in the buttercream underneath. Now I'm going to use the back of a paintbrush, and I'm going to emboss little ridges around this cake to give it the look of a cupcake liner. Once you made your way all the way around the cake, we can invert it back onto the baseboard and dust off the excess cornstarch. Make sure the top is nice and smooth, touch it up if you need to, and then we can move on to covering the top cake with our black fondant. To help me get a nice tight corner at the base of this cake, I'm using the back of my paintbrush handle again, this time using pressure to kind of tuck that black fondant up under the edge. This will also help the fondant look like it's kind of curving underneath and make a rounded edge there. Then just use a sharp knife and trim off the excess fondant. This cake is not incredibly heavy, but just for added security, I'm going to add 3 bubble straws for support. Using a little white chocolate as glue, I'm going to add my top cake on top of our bottom cake. The top of this cupcake is going to look like the hair, so I'm making just random ropes that are tapered kind of at the end, and then I'm going to roll them flat with the rolling pin, and these could be any shape and size. I want it to look really random and kind of crazy. You'll also want to roll some smaller ones to kind of piece in there. And I'm also going to make one smaller one that's going to be a little curlicue down in front of her face. Trim a flat edge on this curlicue and use a little water on the back as glue. Find the front of your cake and add it right at the hairline. You can use your sharp knife again to neatly trim and tuck that fondant piece right up underneath the edge. And then we'll start the hair spiraling from that point around the top of the cake. Just using a little water as glue, find where you want to start and kind of snake it in a swirly pattern up. So I want this cake to look like it's still a cupcake, but I also want it to look like she has some crazy hair going on. So I'm just going at random, different size pieces and just kind of keeping that swirly pattern. When the pieces start to lean a little too far is a good point to tuck a smaller piece in there to fill in the gap, and then just continue on with the larger pieces. Once I've gone about halfway to the back of the cake with the pieces from one side, I'm going to switch to the other side of that starting point and start swirling the pieces back from that direction, so I won't end up with a big noticeable seam right at the front of my cake. If I work from both directions, then they should meet about in the middle of the back of the cake, and it will be much less noticeable. One last piece and her hairdo is finished. I love that the cake is already starting to come together. Next, I'm going to make the face details. I'm rolling out just a little bit of black fondant to about a 1/4 inch thickness. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap. Then use a standard piping tip and use the wide end to cut 2 little circles for eyes. This plastic wrap trick is great because it's going to make the eyes rounded and keep from having any squared off cuts. Next, we'll make 2 eyelashes for each eye, one longer one on the top and then a slightly smaller one on the bottom, and these are just long teardrop shapes. Making slightly longer tapered ropes and giving them an upward curve, I'm going to make eyebrows. A little ball of purple fondant is perfect for a little button nose. And then to make her lips, I have red fondant. I'm going to make a teardrop and split it on the wide end, then kind of pat it into a flat shape, pinch the edges, and it makes the perfect little lip shape. I'm going to make her some little neck bolts using a short log that's about 3/4 inch thick. I'll split it in half so that both of these neck bolts will be the same size, and then just touch up the shape. Using a little bit of water, I'm going to attach the face details to the bottom cake. Her face looks a little plain, so I'm going to use some Petal Dust to add some purple eyeshadow over both eyes. I'll also use a little bit of bright pink Petal Dust to give her a couple of dramatic blush streaks under her eyes. Use a little water to add the neck bolts on either side of the face. Then use water to attach the skinny ropes of black fondant on her forehead to make little stitches. To make the eyes extra cute, I'm using water to attach little dots of white fondant, a larger one and a smaller one on each eye to make little reflection marks. And of course we have to add some white wavy streaks to her hair to give her that classic Bride of Frankenstein look. And for a last little finishing touch, I'm going to paint the neck bolts with just a little bit of silver luster. And that's it. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And let me know in the comments down below, what other Halloween characters would you like to see made out of cake? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos.